Hello and welcome to another episode of Heart Centered Conversations with me, Jane McDowell, a podcast where I talk to people about the favourite things in my life, books, and where we talk about how books have inspired us, helped to shift our perception, give us more knowledge, and help us to do great things in life. And today I'm delighted to welcome my guest, Caroline Pringle. Caroline, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hello, lovely to be here. Thank you for having me. So I live in Bristol and I am a mentor for women going through menopause. So that ranges from nutrition and qigong and life coaching and yoga. I find it such an exciting time to work with women and to just really go through that empowerment of women in this age. It's such an amazing opportunity to go, right, what are the things we're not doing and what are the things we're not saying, and yeah, how do I get more healthy and all that. That's the sort of work that I do. I'm a dog lover. I love
Yep.
singing, all sorts of things. Yeah, I won't go into all my hobbies.
Well, perhaps we can explore them as the
Yes,
conversation
why
goes
not?
on.
Yes.
So, Caroline, tell me, what is the book that you've brought to the conversation today?
So this book is called Unbound.
Hmm.
A Woman's Guide to Power by Kasia Urbaniak. I think that's how you say her name. It's not an easy
Baniak, I think,
name. Urbaniak.
maybe.
Yeah, something like that. We just, didn't we? Something like that. She's a woman in New York, and I've gone about this to all my clients and all my friends. I'm going to give it to all my friends for their Christmas present, so no surprises.
Oh, wow.
Um,
I love it when books like have that much of an impact that you feel compelled to give them to everyone that you know. Awesome.
Seriously, and it's even kind of Christmas Santa colors, isn't it? So
Oh, lush.
it's
Matches my
working.
jumper quite nicely as well.
You're all in the Christmas mode, aren't you? And I have to admit, I listen to it on Audible because I don't find it easy reading fact books. I love fiction, I devour fiction, but factual books, not so much. But I've discovered when I'm walking my dog, just listening to Audible.
Yeah.
And somebody recommended this, and I think when I read the first chapter, I was like, oh my God, I literally felt different after I'd read the first chapter.
Wow, that's a ringing endorsement if ever I heard
Isn't
one.
it? You know,
What was it you heard in that first chapter, Caroline, that you just thought, wow,
um, God, in the first chapter, I can't even exactly remember. Her story is that she trained as a Taoist nun for 17 years, and how she fun. So you have a sort of maybe an idea of what that person might look like or be like, a Taoist nun. And then you find out that she's from New York, and then you find out that she funded herself through her training as a Taoist nun as a dominatrix. And so
wow, that's quite a unexpected turn of events.
I know, isn't that just the best? I think it's probably on the back of the book. I mean, you would just buy that book, wouldn't you, for its
Yeah, definitely.
unusualness? Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so she weaves together both what she learned as a dominatrix about power and liberation and the relationship between men and women with what she's learned as a Taoist nun in terms of energetic power and intention in and intention out, and how women can freeze and get a bit stuck when they're put on the spot, for example. Like, what is it that happens to us? All our kind of people pleasing tendencies, all this sort of conditioned ideas that we need to prioritize other people first. But she's just
So
amazing.
true.
She's not like a man hater or a man basher, which I would find really boring.
Yeah.
It's all about your own power, finding your own grounding, and from that place, bringing your unique gifts into the world. And I guess in the first chapter, she's summarizing that approach, and I just thought, wow, okay, I'm on. You've got me. I'm hooked. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Caroline, what was going on in your life when you picked up the book the first time? Because I often think that we come to texts or
Mm,
to knowledge when we need it most.
I think you're probably right. It resonates with you, doesn't it? And you're like, that's what I need to hear right now. It just goes to your heart, doesn't it, sometimes? What's going on in my life? I suppose I was probably setting up the menopause business, and I'm a single mother, so there's always stuff around that, around how to juggle work, how to prioritize myself within that relationship, which is, I think, always tricky when you've got your own ideas about how you want your life to be and you want to be the best mum on the planet. You know, that it's a balancing act, isn't it? And I think when I listened to her, I just really appreciated both her strength and her softness and
Mm,
bringing both that sort of clarity. It's just, yeah, there was no muddiness or no messiness in terms of the message she was getting across. It just felt so well refined and so exactly what I needed to hear. And
mm.
I think I think there's sometimes in your lives when you can feel like, oh, I might be a victim of this circumstance or that circumstance, and oh, woe is me. And she's just having none of that. It's just absolutely in your power to sort it out. Stop complaining. One of her things is the sort of trait that she thinks that some women display where they complain to whoever they want to complain to, rather than ask in an empowered way for what they want and make it happen. I was like,
Yeah, yeah,
I see that. I see that in myself and in my older female relations and in my friends. You
yeah.
know, just that was like, oh yes, it was a real aha moment.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because not only do we find ourselves doing that, like, having a moan about whatever, woe is me, but then the people around us going, oh, yeah, I know it's
Mm,
really, and then everyone just joins in, don't they? And
mm,
actually, what's far more empowering is have people around you saying, well, that sounds tough. And now
mm,
what are you going to do?
mm.
Because
It's yeah.
we need to lift us. Everybody gets in that point where things are going wrong, things aren't going how you like them to go or as planned. And yeah, it's okay to say to the world, oh, do you know what? This has happened.
Mm,
And we don't want to stay stuck there and like, oh, woe is me and everything's going wrong all the time. Da, da, da. We need someone to lift us out and say, okay, now look at the bigger picture and which direction do you want to choose? I think that,
absolutely. I think surrounding yourself with people who are gonna acknowledge what's going on for you and
yeah,
to pretend that everything's all rosy all the time, but isn't
yeah,
just gonna let you dwell and, as you say, get stuck in a place which isn't helping you because it's you're never going to get anywhere if it's just complaining and moaning about how things are. But if you can use that power, like what is it that is frustrating you? What is it that's making you sad or furious or full of grief? And how do you use that power to really create the life that you want to create? And one of the things I actually love about this book is the fact that she's got little exercises in it. So you can either do it at home or you can do it in groups. At the end of each chapter, she sort of sets you these questions that you can journal about. So you can just work through it in your own pace. Yeah, or in a group of women. And that's actually one of the things that I do is a call where we sometimes take some of those chapters and just little drops in the ocean of what are the things that you're not saying that are then leading you to being really frustrated or acting out or whatever it is. So they're really very practical, useful exercises in it as well.
yeah. I think that there's this tendency, and especially in women, going back to what you said a few moments ago, that we are stuck in this people pleasing. And you mentioned about we get asked a question and we're suddenly like dumbstruck, like, oh, how do I respond? And I think it is a lot of the time because we are trying to work out how we should respond to the person that we're talking to in order to meet their expectations about us,
Hmm.
rather than just having the freedom to say whatever it is. And
Mm,
to kind of, we find ourselves editing ourselves a
mm.
lot. Do you think that's,
Yeah, it's so painful. It's so painful to see in yourself.
yeah,
So so painful to see in other people because with all of us, it's not like, oh, we've got all this sorted and everyone else needs our help with these exercises. It's just a journey for all of us. And
yeah, absolutely.
process of peeling back the layers and going, where's this really coming from? But yeah, it really shocked me. I used to work in drug policy reform, and we used to go on the radio, and the men, when they were asked questions, they would go in and they would have what they wanted to say already lined up. They were totally prepared. They didn't care what questions the interviewer asked them, even if it was, it was Radio 4 on Today program we were on
Yeah,
sometimes. They didn't care. They had their thing they wanted to say. the women really struggled. They wanted to answer the question that they were asked. And I found that so interesting. And Kash's, one of her tips is when you feel like you've got the freeze, ask a question back. Like, even if that just buys you a bit of time to think, okay, just relax. Do I need to answer this question? Is there a different way? Often people go, well, the really interesting question is da 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 da, and then they answer the question that, yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that tip. I love that tip for, when you're in a situation where somebody might ask you, well, why haven't you had kids? Or,
None of
maybe
your business,
no,
right?
but I think it's simple ways of just going, oh, what makes you ask that question?
Yeah.
Or more aggressive things like, why do you feel like you can ask me that question? And that's not even aggressive, isn't it? It's just more assertive. So,
Yeah.
and that's part of what she's helping you work out in this book is, okay, is this somebody that you want to keep as an ally? In which case you might say, and maybe they're just being a bit insensitive, and you might say, what makes you ask that question and what is directly rude, maybe even dangerous for you, and then being increasingly blocking with how you answer. And you can really
Yeah.
see and where that line of like the dominatrix kind of vibe comes in as
Yeah.
the Taoist, the sort of energetic, where is your power? Where is your intention? Yeah, it's very practical.
Absolutely. And it takes you out the need to try and justify yourself as well.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember that very question, how comes you don't have children? Or was one of my neighbours about 3 years ago said to me,
Mm,
oh, so when are you going to have babies, Jane? And I'm like, I think I'm a bit too old for that right now. No,
mm,
no, you're not. No, no, no. Women can still have babies in their 50s these days. You just need to know the right doctors. And I was like, and then I
mm,
don't know what, I just felt this need to try and justify myself. Afterwards, I just felt so angry. I thought, who are
mm,
you to ask me these questions? And
mm,
it's a bit bloody rude on your part to ask these
mm,
questions. And
mm,
yeah, that's yeah, that was a real turning point for me because then I realized, oh, this is not okay to accept. It's not okay for me to accept having to answer anybody's question. I don't have to answer questions.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
And that assumption, how to challenge that assumption so that also maybe that person might learn something,
That'd be
that
nice.
not all women think like that, and that
Yeah.
you're having an amazing life and the life that you've chosen. Or maybe, and for some women, they haven't chosen it, they haven't been able to, because, that's
Yeah.
an incredibly painful question for you to be
Could have
asked.
been. Yeah. I mean, it's so
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
So you read the book
Hmm.
and then it helped you setting up your menopause business.
Hmm.
What else has it brought to your life? I think,
Mm. I would say it has changed. Probably there's stuff around communication and how I communicate that I just notice about myself, a bit like we were just saying, if somebody asks you a question and you feel like you automatically have to respond. And like it can be quite awkward when you're first learning how to not answer the why
yeah.
haven't you got any kids or whatever the question is. It can feel quite rude. And other things like you might want to ask to have, if you were in a job, you might, like some of my clients, for example, when they're going through the menopause, it's hard for them to express what they need at work to support themselves. They feel like they're not performing, so the last thing they want to do is let their boss know, I'm not performing and I need some help. It's sort of almost
Yeah.
counterintuitive to go in and risk exposing the fact that you feel a bit vulnerable.
Mm,
And I think, so for me, it's there's something around allowing myself to be vulnerable, not in that situation exactly because I'm not working for somebody else. But there's something around letting myself be vulnerable, but not seeing that as weak. So
yeah.
still being able to come from a place of being in my own authority and choosing how much information I give and don't give, and feeling really comfortable to ask for what I need to ask for. And again, some of the exercises, she sort of literally helps you step by step. So it's like there's a bit where you're kind of really understanding what it is that you desire from your life. And then there's other bits about how you make the ask that you want to make. And then there's other bits about how do you deal with it when they say no?
Mm,
Like what do you do then? So she takes you all the way along. And so by the time you're actually making your ask, you feel very clear about really what it is you want, why it's important to you, and also okay about if a no comes. Like, what can
Mm.
you do with that no? How can you turn that no into a yes, or how can you turn that no into the person who's giving you the no into an ally? Like, really understand why they're saying no. Like, what are they
Mm.
trying to protect, which is stopping them being able to give you what you want? And maybe there's something else that isn't what you're asking for, but you can agree. Like, all of that, I think, in all relationships is so helpful, whether you're talking to a group of people or one-on-one, family, work. It's, yeah, endless. And I've listened to it quite a few times because after about 6 months, I remember that it's brilliant, but then I forget about why. So I go back again and I listen to it again. I think now I've started using it in my menopause groups. I remember it more because I'm actually
Yeah.
doing the exercises and then adding my own sort of twist to it. So it's sticking in my brain more now.
So I'm curious, Caroline, the women that you work with,
Mm.
and I find this with a lot of women I work with as well, they don't always have a vision of what they want
Mm.
because they've never put themselves first to actually know what it is that they wanted.
Hmm.
So does that show up a lot for your clients,
Mm.
and how do you get them engaged into thinking about their future with them at the forefront of it rather
Mm.
than everyone else around them?
Mm. That's a brilliant question. Yes, I see it constantly and I see it in myself,
Yeah.
which is, it's quite unpleasant. It's like, oh, there's that again. I don't actually know what I want. How is that possible? Um, and natural, we don't need to give ourselves a hard time. We are how we are because of the
Mm.
life we've lived and the society we live in. So I see it a lot. And sometimes people are aware of that they're not closely in touch with what they want or what they need. Sometimes people don't even realize it. They're just I might not ask them directly, but it might become clear from a conversation or doing some work that they don't have the fire of desire for whatever it is, whether it's a new business or a new lover or a new coat. They don't have
Yeah.
that burning, oh, I want this, I need this, of that
Yeah.
tastiness. It's not alive in them. And I think, yeah, I think partly that's normal. And I think in menopause, there is a time, I see it as a transition where we need to come in for a bit. We need to gather ourselves in. It's a bit like the cocoon bit of
Yeah,
the
definitely.
caterpillar. Everything gets, you go into your cocoon, everything gets mashed up, and you're like, oh my God, who the hell am I? What is going on? But you're in your cocoon, so you're kind of hopefully feeling okay, but like a bit all at sea, so to speak. And at that point, you may not want to come out and be really public about what your desires are. You might just be feeling into what on earth is going on. And then you come out to another point where you're like, oh, actually, I'm okay. I can kind of feel some wings growing. Oh, actually, they work. I can fly. And I think at that point, it's easier to go, right, this is what I want in the world, and this is how I'm gonna to make that happen. So I think we don't need to put pressure ourselves. We don't need to put pressure on ourselves to go, what I want, I've got to make it happen now, because it might not be the right point. But if it is the right point for a woman to do that, I think how do I work with it? We do visualizations where we go really deep into like maybe starting off on how something feels in the body and what emotion is behind that feeling and sort of going through these layers of oh and what's underneath that, but in a not in a I don't even know how to describe it, not in a way which is very intellectually challenging and not in a
Yeah.
very hardcore way, just gently opening up possibilities for women to dream into the feeling that they actually want to have, like what's getting in the way of them having the feeling that they want to have, and then the feeling that they want to have. Um, so I think that kind of thing really helps women to get in touch with it without intellectualizing it and knowing it in that way, like finding where that knowing is within their body. So sometimes visualization, sometimes with the qigong work that I do, it's very much again about helping people like if you move, you can't ignore so much about how you're feeling anymore. Like you can shove it down. In my experience, anyway, you can kind of shove it down and hold yourself in and you're not feeling it. But in the Qigong, I'm encouraging people to open their chest and to move around. And suddenly all these feelings are like, oh God, now feel how tense I am in there. And it just quite naturally comes out. And once the stuff that you're blocking moves through, then the inspiration, there's more space to feel the inspiration and the desire and to start, maybe I might set somebody a little an intention of what if you let yourself do one thing that you absolutely love every week, that you're
Yeah.
just doing it for the sake of doing it, not because it's going to improve your relationship or your job. It's just what do you really fancy doing this week? So little steps, doesn't have to be a huge jump off a cliff. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
those kinds of things.
Yeah, awesome. Because it seems to me also that once you've connected someone with what's possible for their future and what their dreams are and get them like, excited and get their heart really involved in it,
Mm,
then the next step for a lot of people is being able to vocalize that to the people around them. Because
mhm,
that's, I think, where a lot of people get stuck as well, isn't it?
mm,
You know,
mm,
they've created something that they really want to go after, and then, well, how do I explain this to my partner or my
mm,
kids or the
mm,
people at work or whatever?
mm. Yeah, that's something that Kasia talks about a lot is making that ask. And her little experiment is to get you to make the most outrageous. So once you've got in touch with your desire through whoever's means you've done it, what's the most outrageous thing you can ask for? Like something you think you're definitely not going to get.
Yeah,
And then actually sort of reflecting on that is that even outrageous? Actually, maybe there's something even more outrageous. Maybe that's quite reasonable. Because I think often as women, we've accommodated so many things. We're trying to make everything harmonious. And we kind of forget, actually, it's not unreasonable what I want. And actually that is really what I want. And I don't even feel like I can begin to ask for that. So that's one of the things I love about her book is that encouragement to ask for the ridiculous. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I'm guessing if she was a dominatrix, she must have been asked some quite outrageous and ridiculous requests anyway.
Yes. Yes. And
Does
I
she go
think
into that kind of level of detail, or is it just kind of glossed over?
um she goes into the power, like she goes into how, because I think it's probably more her telling the person, her client, more telling them what to do and maybe drilling, kind of putting the spotlight on them. Because she's in the domineering
Hmm.
position. And she more talks about how within their body language she can see if that's something that's going to be really useful for them to work with in terms of, do I really want to do that, or is it something that's easy? And the more difficult it is, the more like slightly uncomfortable it is, the more interesting it is for her to help them unpack why that's uncomfortable for them. So
Mm,
she goes into that sort of the personal relational stuff that you just could encounter any time in your life. She talks a lot about the animal body and just your animal body actually knowing what that other animal body is experiencing. It's just we're so in our heads we don't even know how to, we don't trust that we do know. We don't trust that we know what's going on for them. So
yeah.
that's really helpful.
Well, I guess that must be partly down to all the inhibitions that our culture has piled in on us. And,
I think inhibitions and also I think not pausing, not just having a moment where you're not saying anything, you're just allowing yourself to feel what's going on. And if you just let a bit of space open up between you, what is there? If you kind of listen,
mm,
all of your body as well as your ears and see without trying to intellectually understand it, like what can you read from this person energetically? And yeah, love it.
yeah. I have a very special person in my life who is I don't know what she would call herself. She's a shamanic practitioner. She's a thetan of sorts. She's a sound healer, all sorts of things. And so I've had quite a few sessions with her, very luckily. Um, and one of the things she said to me, which really struck me, was, Jane, I don't actually think anymore. I'm
Mm,
like, what? And just trying to get my mind round of not thinking. Because
Mm,
I don't know, my mind is just like 10 to the dozen all the time. I'm having thoughts about all sorts of things.
mm.
Um, and I quite enjoy that because I find it quite entertaining. But I was thinking, how do you reach a point where you she says, you know, I just am and
Mm,
I'm not thinking.
mm,
Oh, that's
mm,
does does the book take you to that? Is that part of
mm,
Taoism? I'm not
mm,
hugely
mm,
100% sure what Taoism is.
mm, mm.
Yeah, give my
Yes, I think the Taoist tradition, the philosophy, the books, they talk a lot about being and not so much thinking or not thinking, but just the an energetic awareness. Like they probably don't even use those terms. I mean, quite honestly,
mm,
the text that I've read, because the Qigong, the practice that I do, the physical movement practice, there are Taoist elements within that. And a lot of the Chinese stuff that's been translated is from so long ago and translated by so many different people, it just actually like, yeah, it depends which translation you get. But
yeah. No, we're
my
missing the essence of it, and yeah,
yeah, I mean, or they just use different words. Often it's very poetic, so they might not use a word like thinking or not thinking, but they might describe some natural experience, like the wind just is. It's not thinking, is it bad for me to blow in this direction, or that bit of wind is better than my bit of wind, or I should have blown over there first. It's just
yeah,
being the wind, and it's neither good.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I think I have another practice, which is a Dzogchen practice through a
Oh,
group
what
called
practice, Caroline?
Zog Dzogchen is
Zog.
DZ is the beginning of it.
Okay.
And that's the way that my teacher describes the thinking, not thinking thing is more like your thoughts are like stars in the sky. And when the sun comes out, the stars are all there still, the moon is still there, but you're just not so focused on them, you don't see them anymore.
Mm,
And so the way she describes it is a bit like all those thoughts are still there in her head. The feelings, the sensations, the reactions are sort of, they're there, but they're not, she's more resting in the vastness of the sky, and the stars are just part of that. She knows they're there, and a rainbow might be there for a minute, and a bird flies through her vision, and she's just all of that. She's not just the thoughts. And I that's what my practice is really based on.
yeah, so you're not being consumed by your thoughts. You're just
Yeah.
aware of them.
Yeah.
That sounds like a very peaceful place to be.
Yes, it's an amazing practice. I've been doing it for about 11 years, and again, it's something that you're constantly seeing in yourself. Oh, I'm completely obsessing about whatever it is I'm obsessing about. But I think for me, I see it less and less. I was a massive worrier, a massive overthinker.
Mm,
I think, part of what my teacher has shown me is that there's nothing wrong. As you said, it's entertaining. There's nothing wrong with the thoughts. There's nothing wrong with the emotions of anxiety or fear or whatever it is. They're there and you can let yourself really feel them. You've got nothing to be afraid of, but almost kind of focusing on the feeling rather than your interpretation and your story,
yeah,
that feeling, which can then actually lead you in all sorts of directions and away from the purity and the clarity of that feeling. And I really love that way of, again, it's not right and wrong. It's not that the thoughts are wrong. And we need our brains sometimes. We do have a problem to work out like a logistical thing, and they're amazing. I mean,
yeah,
how incredible are we that we can work all these things out and have so many things in our head at the same time? So I think, yeah, it's not about them being good or bad, but I think if we are dominated by them all the time, it gets exhausting and there isn't that space for the inspiration and yeah, some of the good stuff in life.
yeah. It's a bit like how you said earlier when you're working with your clients doing the qigong and they're stretching and opening up and recognizing what they've been holding on to and being able to let go of it. So when we let go of those things, it makes room for other things to come in that are more nourishing and fulfilling,
Yes.
hopefully.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, thank God there's women like you to work with. There's more and more of us doing this work to empower women and the whole world to clear out the crap and, find themselves, find their power and express themselves.
Caroline. Well, I've absolutely loved this conversation, and I will definitely be looking into this book because it just sounds fascinating on so many levels. Having been to a convent school all my, primary through secondary school,
Wow.
the word nuns, I am like, um,
Ooh.
Father Jack and Father Ted's reverse, reverse when I
Yeah.
hear the word nun. So it would be good to get a different perspective.
Yes.
So thank you for introducing me to the book. I will definitely go and read it, Caroline. And thank you so much for being a wonderful guest. Anyone who is watching or listening to this, if you'd like to find out more about Caroline's work, I will put her contact details in the details for the show. And yeah, do get in touch with her. In
Thank
the
you.
meantime, I will see you all in the next episode. Thank you so much, Caroline. Everybody, remember to like and subscribe and share with your friends. And until the next time, take care. Bye.